global effort to address COVID.
Giving some of these Pfizer vaccines to the Canadians?
Again, I think we are focused now on vaccinating the American people, but we made this contribution to COVAX. We are committed to working through that organizing mechanism, and there are a range of options on the table for how the United States can contribute to expand our contribution to the global effort to fight COVID.
What's the threshold for donating surplus vaccines? How many Americans need to be vaccinated before the U.S. will do that?
It's a great question, Caitlin. We're not at that point yet. Obviously, we're contributing a significant amount financially to COVAX, which is the international organizing mechanism that we feel is most effective, has the most quality control, and is going to help distribute the vaccine equitably. But there are a range of options that remain on the table, but our priority and our focus is on vaccinating the American people.
There was some reporting from, I think, Bloomberg and the FT about China considering export bans on rare earth minerals to U.S. defense companies. Is that something that's on your radar, and how would the Biden administration react if they did end up doing that?
I'd probably have to talk to our national security team about that. It's not an action that I've seen that they have taken to date, so I will venture to do that and see if we can get you something more specific.
I think that Biden said in his remarks earlier today that everyone needs to play by the same rules. U.S. and European companies are required to publicly disclose corporate governance structures and abide by rules to deter corruption in monopolistic companies. Chinese companies should be held to the same standards. And I was wondering if he's indicating some policy shift there. Does he plan on, pulling out of the MOU with China over accounting standards or something like that?
I'm just not going to get ahead of our ongoing process. I will say that obviously China and our approach to China, and certainly China's, seeing China as a source of competition is a prominent topic of discussion with our European partners, our partners in Asia, and I expect we will take a coordinated approach to addressing their approach to governance.
Did he tell governors during their meeting that the minimum wage raise will not?
He said what he had said publicly about a week and a half earlier during a CBS interview, which is that he is looking at, he was in the Senate for 36 years. He knows it has to go through a process through the parliamentarian in the Senate. He put the minimum wage, an increase in the minimum wage, in his bill because he hopes that it is, because he feels that it is long overdue for that to be raised for American workers. But he also knows it's got to go through a process. And he also conveyed in that meeting, which was in the report, that he believes, that he hopes that it does stay in there. That remains his view.
But if you're saying he repeated what he said in the CBS interview, so he did repeat that he doesn't think it's likely it will survive?
I think he was reflecting on the fact that it has to go through a Senate parliamentary process. So we have to see that that process has to work its way through. He obviously leaves it up to Congress. The bottom line is his focus and his desire is to have the minimum wage increased. He thinks it should happen over a period of time, but he thinks American workers, are long overdue in getting an increase.
Why is he raising that doubt about the parliamentarian when this certainly seems like the easiest way for the $15 minimum wage to become law? Why is he even raising those doubts in public? Why didn't he just hold back on that until he saw what the parliamentarian decides to do?
He was in the Senate for 36 years. I think he just follows closely what happens in Congress. But
he
would not have put it in the bill if he did not want the minimum wage to be increased. That's what he wants to see the outcome as. But he also knows through many, many decades of working through legislation that the bill that comes out the other end may not look exactly the same as the bill coming in, and there's several steps.
Does it have to do it all with the fact that there are a couple of Democratic senators who are not warm to that idea, and that's why he's putting some of the doubt out there, because he wants to keep them on board?
I would say there are also many Democrats who feel very, very strongly it should be in there. He certainly understands that there are a range of views about different components of the package. That's legislating. That's how democracy should work. He was simply explaining to them that this has to go through a process because it's going through reconciliation and that's all it was a reflection of, an explanation of the process, not a reflection of his commitment to raising the minimum wage.
Senator Sanders has said that he's assembling a team of aides to make the argument to the parliamentarian. How aware or involved is the White House in that process of the argument that will go before the parliamentarian?
We're certainly aware that Senator Sanders is taking that process and has hired a number of, working with, I should say, a number of very qualified and experienced people to work through the parliamentary process. We're kept abreast of it. I wouldn't say we're involved in it directly.
As he prepares his arguments, is he keeping the White House abreast of how likely he thinks they are to pass, etc.?
Yeah, we're in regular touch with Senator Sanders and his team and many other senators and members on the bill and certainly on this issue as well.
Does the White House have plans to mark 500,000 dead from the coronavirus? Do you know how you guys would mark that occasion?
We are looking for ways to mark that moment and ensure that the American people, that the president uses his own voice and platform to take a moment to remember the people whose lives have been lost, the families who are still suffering, at what is still a very difficult moment in this country. I don't have additional details yet, but we hope to have them in the coming days.
Does the president have any specific policy announcements that he's going to be making at the Pfizer factories, and mostly just a rally the troops sort of event to highlight the use of the DPA?
He wanted to visit a factory that is not only an important employer in Michigan, but also one that is producing a large swath of the Pfizer vaccines that are going out to the American public, and see it in action. So that's why we're going.
And has the president been involved in any of the discussions with manufacturers or shippers with these winter weather delays of these vaccines, or has he left it all to his COVID team?
It's really been handled primarily by the COVID team. I know there was a COVID briefing update earlier today. Did you all have the opportunity to listen to that? I mean, basically, excuse me, what they talked about was our efforts underway to, of course, we can't control Mother Nature, but to take steps working with USPS, FedEx, and others to get the backlog of vaccines out next week. And that we anticipate we can not only get the backlog out, but we can stay on pace with what we had been planning to distribute to states already for next week. So we're expecting we're going to be able to catch up next week. And we've been working with, of course, a number of shippers, but also working directly with different jurisdictions on their preference for when they want the deliveries to happen. Because as we all know, there are certain temperature requirements with some of the vaccines. So that's what they gave an update on this morning.
You said you expect the shipments to be back to normal next week?
Yeah.
Okay, just clarifying.
And to catch up.
Okay, and when is the administration releasing the report on the death of Jamal Khashoggi? Is that coming next week?
I don't have an update on that. We remain committed, of course, to working to release the unclassified report, but I don't have an update on the timeline.
When it's released, will there be a briefing by the DNI on it?
Question. I'm happy to talk to the Intel team and see what they're planning to do at the point when it's released. I don't know.
Have you talked to the president at all about how Senator Cruz has been handling the situation in Texas and sort of the backlash around his travel to Mexico and back?
I can assure you that with millions of people in Texas still suffering, we're not spending any time, energy, or breath analyzing Senator Cruz's whereabouts or his group chat.
On the chip front, I know that there's an executive order coming on supply chain that's going to call for reviews. Is there anything more concrete in the short term? I mean, there was reporting on a letter that was sent out to Taiwan. I know there's been contact with some of the chip makers, but, would the administration consider invoking the DPA for the chips, or is there something else more concrete?
I expect we will have more on that soon. It will be a big day for you and others who are very excited about this issue, as are we. There was reporting on a letter. I can confirm there was a letter from the NEC director, Brian Deese. We have been doing a range of outreach to international folks in the international community about this issue as we work to address the shortage. We've also been working directly, our economic and national security teams have been engaged directly with manufacturers, as you said. So that's really the work that's underway, but I can assure you we'll have more to update you on the executive orders soon. Not today, but soon.
The president talked about wanting to engage in the Afghanistan peace process. Is the president open to meeting or speaking directly with Taliban leaders himself personally? That was something obviously the last administration looked at with that potential Camp David summit even. Is that something, would the president keep the door open to that sort of direct engagement with the Taliban?
I have seen those reports. Obviously, as you know, there's an ongoing peace process. I've not spoken with the president directly or with Secretary Blinken or Jake Sullivan about our intentions on direct engagement and what level.
Would he invite them to Camp David?
I think I have the same answer to that question. I think right now there's an ongoing peace process, as you know. We obviously follow and track it closely, but I don't have any other updates or previews for you on additional levels of engagement.
But would he be open to it, or is that not something he would consider?
I think that's getting way ahead of where we are in any process.
Going back to Iran for a second, when the president spoke with the Israeli Prime Minister, I don't remember what day it was, excuse me, did he make him aware of this change in policy regarding the JCPOA?
Obviously, this is a topic of interest to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and certainly one that, even if there are discussions moving forward, they'd be a key partner in the region to be kept abreast of, but I don't have anything more to read out from the call.
Any plans to fly somewhere warm in the coming weeks?
I was just saying that this morning in the car. There must be some people in a warm state who want to see the president. I will raise that.
Texas, any plans there? I know the president addressed this, but any firmer plans now about a visit?
We are certainly, as he said this morning, of course, keeping the option open. As you all know from traveling with presidents in the past, it is a significant footprint for a president to travel to a state, especially a state that is still recovering from a disaster. So we are taking all of that under consideration before we make specific plans.
Is he disappointed that Johnson & Johnson, if they're authorized their vaccine, that they're going to have fewer doses available? Is he disappointed by that?
Well, the FDA has not even approved Johnson & Johnson yet. We have ordered enough Moderna and Pfizer vaccines to vaccinate the entire public. So that's where our focus is on. We'll see as it moves through the process.
What was the mood in that G7 meeting this morning? What was his mood? Was he happy to be back in the diplomatic game, if you will, since it was his major first engagement?
I would say that foreign policy is one of his loves, and working with the global community and engaging on these issues that he's been working on throughout his career is something that he's eager to continue to be very involved in, which naturally he would be as president. But I think he's looking forward to retaking America's seat at the global table and rebuilding trust with our partners and allies around the world. And while he's had a number of individual calls with his counterparts around the world, this was an important opportunity to take a step forward in doing exactly that.
Is he planning to go to the G7 in person? What are the discussions about that? Informal?
June. I think it's too far away at this point to make an assessment of whether we'll be traveling internationally yet.
Can I ask you to put it on the record, because we got it from the last administration that there was an invitation for Russia to join the G7. Does that invitation still stand?
An invitation from the United States to join
for Russia to join the G7.
I don't think we're making new invitations to Russia or reiterating new invitations to Russia. Obviously, any invitation would be done in partnership with our G7 partners.
Thanks, Jen.